During Q4, evergreen niches see a massive surge in demand. This can cause evergreen designs to get about 3 to 5 times as many sales as usual. And to help you prepare your print-on-demand business for the Christmas shopping rush, I will show you the steps I take to successfully enter evergreen niches. And for those of you who are not aware what evergreen niches are, they're usually related to animals, hobbies, sports, common interests, jobs, or food, for example. In this video, I'm going to use the niche of gardening just as an example to show you my process. But if you want to learn how to find these evergreen niches yourself, I've actually made a video discussing 5 different methods of how to find them. So you might want to watch that video before this one, or maybe save it for afterwards. So essentially this video is mainly going to focus on how you should create designs for these niches. But before you even start creating your designs, there's a few steps that you need to take. First of all, you want to study the search results, meaning whichever niche that you want to enter, type in that search term into Amazon, into Redbubble, maybe Etsy as well, just to see some different results, scroll through the best sellers, and that way you can get an idea of what sorts of styles work, let's say what color themes people are using a lot, or which types of fonts seem to do well, or if there's like a lot of funny designs or more retro style designs that are more serious. I don't know, maybe there's a lot of animals in the niche as well, even though it's a hobby. Like here, for example, we can see there's a dog in this graphic, there's chickens up here. I've seen some other designs while just looking through as well that had dogs, chickens, cats, that sort of theme. So yeah, you want to do that for 10-20 minutes, just look through what sells and also take some screenshots of some of the best sellers, as well as just funny t-shirts that you like the look of, because the screenshots can help us for inspiration later on. Step number 2 is a very important one that you definitely shouldn't skip. It is checking for trademarks. So when you're looking at best sellers that you want to use for inspiration or maybe recreate, then you want to do a quick trademark check while you're doing your research, because after you've created your design, if you then find out that there's trademarks in it, you feel like you've just wasted your time because you can't even upload it. So what I always recommend is Productor, because it's totally free. It's a browser extension that lets you check trademarks on Merch by Amazon when you're uploading, but there's also other options like Merch Informer's Trademark Check, which works on the front end of Amazon on the product pages. That one is quite handy as well, and it's free. If you don't want to use any of those features, there's also a website called Trademark Hunt, or TM Hunt, and I will leave the link to all of these in the description so you can make sure to be clear from trademarks. If this is a topic that you struggle with, you're not sure what the rules are, I do have an in-depth video guide explaining things to you, as well as going more in depth into these tools. Step number 3 would be to download some graphic assets. This is always something I do before I start designing. I usually head to Vexels first because I really like their website and their quality of graphics, and yeah, just type in gardening or gardener, or garden tools, that sort of stuff, and just download a few files that you think might help you out with your designs. If you don't like Vexels or you don't have a subscription, Creative Fabrica is also quite useful. I do go to their website a lot as well. You can often join them for just like $1 per month to try them out. It's very affordable, and they have a ton of graphics as well. So Creative Fabrica, Vexels, highly recommended, and I will leave a link to both of them in the description as well. And now moving on to the design process, the first method that I want to show you is recreating best sellers. And you might find a few people out there tell you not to do this, saying it's a waste of time. But in my opinion, and from my experience, it's definitely a valid approach to designing for evergreen niches. It's worked for me a lot in the past, and there's nothing wrong with it as long as you don't copy what's already out there. This is one of the best sellers on Amazon for the gardening niche. I'll be in my office with sort of a few gardening graphics, and right here is my recreation of that design. So I've used the same phrase, but it's a completely different design. I've not tried to copy this by like placing the same items in the same location, using the same font and color scheme. It's a unique design, it's a recreation, there's no copyright infringement here. It's very simple, it's a vintage sunset, just a few graphics overlaid here that fit gardening. Found these ones on Vexels, and then using a nice font to go along with that. And the thing is, this sort of strategy in bigger niches with high competition could be unsuccessful, in my honest opinion. Like if you're entering the gaming niche and you just copy some of the best sellers, which 1,000 people have already done before you probably, then it's going to be hard to pick up sales. But in smaller niches with less competition, this method can definitely be very, very successful, because the designs are already validated. You can already see that people love that design style, and there's not that many people out there who've created the same design. So if you recreate it in a new, unique way, you can definitely pick up some of that interest and demand from the niche. And just a quick tip right here as well, you can just quickly take that same design, change around some of the colors, and you've got a different version for white t-shirts, just as an example. So once you've created one design, you can always reuse that, maybe change the phrase around a bit as well, or use an entirely different phrase with the same sunset. So it's always handy sort of reusing graphics that you've already established. Another example for this method would be this top seller right here, which says, "I just wet my plants," and that phrase specifically is very popular in this niche. I noticed it's quite a funny pun, wordplay, and there's tons of different designs. This one surprisingly is the best seller, even though it's like the most basic, just a bit of text typed out. But here is my recreation of that design. I have gone ahead and used the rainbow style, which I actually didn't see a lot in this niche, but I thought it's worth trying out. And I made the color scheme fit the sort of green vibe, which you see a lot within the gardening niche. And then I've placed some gardening graphics underneath the rainbow, which I think worked quite well. And now, once again, what you can do is you can just reuse this rainbow and change the phrase around a bit. So rather than just copying, "I just wet my plants," you could say something like, "I love wetting my plants," or "just a mum who loves wetting her plants." Basically play around with the same idea, the same joke, but just create unique new phrases. That way still target the same sort of audience that would like that shirt on the left in a new and unique way. So there we go, that's the second example. And the third one, just to round it off, this is a screenshot from Redbubble. That's one of the top selling designs on there. It's got to do with lawn mowing, and it's another sort of funny design. This is my recreation. It's in the same sort of theme of retro vintage sunset, but it's still a unique different layout and color scheme. I've used different graphics, so this is something that can work as well, so you don't always have to overthink it and create a completely different design. You can go along with the same sort of vibe and theme and still create something unique. Moving on to method number 2 of how to design for evergreen niches successfully would be to use proven concepts. And what I mean by this is there is tons and tons of design ideas which work across different niches, but they might not exist for your niche yet. You kind of build an awareness for these proven concepts over time. If you do a lot of research or you create a lot of designs, you kind of notice certain things that always seem to sell. Let's say you look through some different niches like gaming, cycling, fishing, and you find some ideas there that you didn't see during your research in the gardening niche, and that's what you want to be recreating or using when you enter the gardening niche, essentially. So one example right here would be this one. Today's schedule, it's got to do with cycling. It's got the times right here, so 7 AM in the morning, person drinks coffee or tea, and then the whole day they want to go cycling because that's the hobby, and in the evening, once the day's over, they drink beer. So you can apply that idea to other niches as well that you enter, and that can especially be successful if those niches don't have this design style in them yet. So this is basically my variation of that specific design for the gardening niche. As you can see, I've reused some graphics from earlier with the watering can and the plants. I've used some different fonts to make it fit the gardening niche a bit better. I've got coffee over here and then a beer mug. So this is a valid way to enter this gardening niche, and you could once again create different variations of this design. Just change the color scheme around a bit, or maybe try out different fonts as well if you wanted to, because this font is a bit girly or feminine. So you could make another design variation with a more manly font like this, for example, the distressed sort of sans serif font, just as an example right there. Yeah, so that would be the first proven concept that I found from a different niche to try and apply to this one. Moving over, we've got this design right here, half coffee, half teacher, which has been a top seller for a long time now. It's cross-niching teacher with coffee. Tons of people love coffee, and not just teachers. So that means we could apply this concept to our niche as well, and I've done that over here. I've used a rainbow design theme, and I've implemented the green color scheme in here as well, and I've put half coffee and half gardener underneath. So not just copying this design style one-to-one, coming up with a unique idea. And then a last example right here would be this design style, which you often see selling really well across different niches. and I didn't notice this style when I was doing my research for gardening. I mean, it might exist somewhere out there. I didn't look through every single page while I was doing my research, but still, if you don't see it and you know this sort of design style can do well, then just do it anyway. And that's what I did right here. And I wasn't sure exactly what to do for the person at the end, whether to put a lawnmower there, but yeah, I just gave him the watering can in the end. Could probably make that look a bit better. It doesn't really look like he's, you know, bent over and watering the plants properly. Looks more like he's actually walking while doing that, but it doesn't matter. This is just an example. You could also change the colors. Like this person has created this in a nice way, where it has a nice vintage color scheme overlaid onto the evolutionary figures. I just have a plain white one right here, so once again, opportunity right there to create different variations of the same design. Method number 3 is thinking outside the box, and this one is arguably the hardest one, because you have to come up with completely new, unique ideas. But also it can be the most successful method as well, because you're coming up with new designs that no one's ever done before, and if they're good and people actually like them, then you have no competition. So this method is hard to teach. I can try and give you some tips right here. So first of all, the easiest way for this method would be to actually know a niche really well. So this might be hobbies and things that you do yourself that therefore have a lot of knowledge about. For example, I find it really easy to come up with design ideas for dachshunds or sausage dogs, because I own a sausage dog myself and I'm around it all day long. I know its characteristics, and also from talking to other dachshund owners, I know the similarities and opportunities of what sort of designs to create that sausage dog owners might find funny. So in your case, think of hobbies, interests, animals, or food that you know really well, and where you know what people who like these certain topics would find funny or interesting, and that way you make it easier for yourself to come up with design ideas. Another way of how to do this method is to cross niche, and you could just lay out lots of different cross niching topics and then think of ways of how to combine them in a unique way. So for example, cross niching topics are often things like coffee, beer, wine, countries, different national and international holidays, different family members like mum, dad, grandpa, grandma. So these different words and phrases, topics of interest, you can cross niche them with the topic that you're entering to try and come up with something unique. And another tip right here, just do some research. If you don't know the niche that you're entering, like this has happened to me tons of times in the past, where I found a niche on the American market. It's a sport that I've never heard of, and I don't know who even plays it or what it looks like. Just watch some YouTube videos, see what it's like, and maybe that way you also find out what people are interested in, or what sort of people even play the sport, because maybe it's a lot of retired people, and then you know, right, I'll do some retirement themed designs around this sport. So I think you get the idea. Looking through memes can also be helpful. Memes often have sort of funny ideas for a certain topic that might work well on a t-shirt. So you could type in gardening memes for this topic right here. But anyway, let's move on to the first design, just to give you some examples. This one is happiness is gardening with my dog and a glass of wine. And the reason I created this design is because I noticed while doing my research, there's tons of designs that have dogs in them. So obviously there must be a lot of people who like to do gardening work while their dog's around, it's running around in the garden, having fun with them. And I also know from experience, I know an old lady who likes to garden a lot, and she really likes wine. So retired people who probably spend a lot of time gardening, if that's the hobby, might also be drinking wine at the same time. And this way we've got 3 different topics. We've got dogs, gardening, and wine to target a more specific audience. And I don't think I've seen a design with this specific cross niching, so I thought I'd create it. I'd just try it out. Again, the thing is with these sort of thinking outside the box or completely new design ideas is that sometimes they might not sell. Maybe you've just come up with an idea that no one's actually looking for. You can't always be 100% sure, but there is some cases where you have a lot of potential to get a lot of sales, so it's definitely worth trying this method. Then, second example, this is sort of more creative or more adventurous, I think you could say, because from that same woman who really likes to do gardening, I know that it can take a long time to do gardening work, especially if the garden's really big. And it feels like once you're done with all of the jobs that you wanted to do, like another 100 jobs have come up again, and it's like this never-ending circle of jobs in the garden, and you never feel like you get done. And this is why I wanted to create a funny design that sort of symbolizes the fact that gardening work, or the process of gardening, is a never-ending diagram, different jobs. And this might not be very great because I myself don't know that much about gardening. I don't know what's involved with it, but I just came up with a few quick ideas here. Water plants, drink coffee, kill weeds, etc, etc, and it just runs back in a circle. And I also put underneath, it never ends. So this is sort of a funny shirt to wear for people who like gardening. Whether it would actually work or not, I don't know. I don't have any validation for it, but I know that people who like to garden feel like they never get done. So it's definitely something worth trying. And just one quick thing to mention as well, I didn't check trademarks for all of these words that I'm showing you in these designs. I'm not going to upload them anyway. These are just meant for educational purposes, and checking for trademarks would have taken me even longer than this video already has, so just be aware of that. Some of these words might be trademarked. And one quick last example is this one, Plant Mum, so targeting women who like gardening, and it has an American flag with gardening items embedded, so you're sort of crossing the USA with gardening and with mums, which is another cross-niching idea that might not have been done many times before. And if you're wondering, the American flag graphic is actually from Vexels. I just cut out some of the items right here in the middle to leave space for the wording. That's the last example for thinking outside the box, and let's move on to the next one. Method number 4 is creating scalable designs, and this is arguably one of the easiest methods to enter Evergreen designs, and it can also be one of the fastest if you know how to automate the process. And essentially you just create templates, usually text-based, where you can swap out one of the words very easily and quickly, and that way target lots of different evergreen niches at once. And here's the first example. I've just created this design that says, I like gardening, dogs, and maybe like 3 people. That's sort of a common scalable phrase because it targets introverts, maybe like 3 people, sort of alludes to the fact that they don't socialize a lot. And we've also crossed it with dogs right here, because we know gardening people often like dogs. And now you could use this word right here, gardening, and just quickly swap it out for fishing, for example. And the design still works just as it did before. There's no graphics related to gardening in the way, and people who like fishing will also like dogs, like a lot of them. I mean, not everyone, but I think you get the idea. And this is super easy method, and whilst you're not entering one specific niche at a time, you're entering hundreds of niches simultaneously. As I said, you can automate this with Illustrator. The words swapping can be done very quickly, and I've got videos on my channel explaining that as well if you're interested in that. Another example would be this right here, husband, dad, gardening legend. So basic text design, a nice font, and a nice color scheme. And once again, you can swap out the word gardening very easily for tons of different hobbies and interests, and that way create a lot of scalable designs in a quick manner. And lastly, we've got a very basic sentence right here. I'd rather be gardening. Very simple text design, takes like 2 minutes to create. And I know I was going to show you 4 methods of how to enter niches, but I'm going to give you a bonus one anyway, and that is using pre-made designs. This is once again a very easy method. I myself have done it in the past as well. I think the potential of getting sales here is a bit lower because obviously other people can also use these pre-made graphics. But I'll give you an example. This is a pre-made design by Vexels. I've not changed anything about it, and it has that I just wet my plants popular phrase within the gardening niche. And you can upload these if you've got a great listing, or maybe if you run ads to them, you can see some success that way. It's definitely possible. Or maybe if you upload them to many marketplaces, then they might be new to some of those, because not everyone uploads to all marketplaces. It's definitely worth trying. You save yourself a lot of time because you don't have to actually design yourself, but I would generally recommend a mixture of using pre-made graphics, unique designs, recreating bestsellers, and yeah, not just focusing on only using pre-made. Another example is this one, gardening is my escape from reality. That's another Vexels graphic that I found, and I think it looks really nice. The illustration style is very appealing, and yeah, it just has that summery happy feel. Cool pre-made design. You could also erase the text and use this graphic for other phrases if you wanted to, but just uploading it on its own can also sometimes get you some sales. And last but not least, we've got a funny cross niche design that I found. It is gaming mixed with plants or gardening, which probably not a lot of people actually would target, because gaming and gardening, at least from my idea, from my experience, doesn't really go together very often. I don't think I've seen many people who love gardening and love gaming, but it's definitely worth trying out. It's a cool design concept that might get you some sales if you try and upload it. And once again, this is on Vexels, so I'll have a link to Vexels down below in the description. And just a quick summary before I end the video. So these are the 5 methods I recommended to you: recreating bestsellers, using proven designs, thinking outside the box, and then we've got scalable designs as well as pre-made graphics. All of these can work. I use them all the time, but I would recommend that you try out a combination of them and don't just focus on one. And that way you can work out what works best for yourself, because what works the best for me might not work the best for you, and vice versa. So yeah, definitely give these methods a try to pick up more sales during Q4 and really crush it. So once you're done creating your designs, the next vital step to succeeding with entering these evergreen niches is to create good quality listings so that the right people will find your t-shirts. If you do this step wrong, you could be massively holding back your sales. And this is why you need to watch this video next, which is my full in-depth listing guide showing you how to find the right keywords and how to use them to create a successful listing.